Web Marketing That Works podcast, episode 149, with today's guest, Dorie Clark.
Welcome to the Web Marketing That Works podcast. Come behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments and listen in as amazing guests confess the truth about what really works. Now, here are your hosts, Adam Franklin and Toby Jenkins.
It's Adam Franklin here, and welcome to the Web Marketing That Works podcast. This is the show for people who love marketing on the web. You'll be taken behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments. We'll look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. We confess what's failed and reveal the truth about what really works. So this show is brought to you by our book, which is also called Web Marketing That Works. And if you haven't downloaded them yet, please go ahead and access the 33 free marketing templates. They're available on our website at bluewiremedia.com.au/book. Now for today's guest, Dorie Clark. She is the best-selling author of a number of books. One is called Reinventing You. The other is called Stand Out. And not only that, she's a professional speaker, marketing strategy consultant, regular contributor to the Harvard Business Review, and her face just kept coming up during the political election. She's a political commentator and was on all the big US TV networks, providing her commentary on the election that took place in 2016 with Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Not only that, she's a lovely woman, and I've had the pleasure of getting to know her recently. And today's show is exceptional. She is going to teach us the tips and the process to become a recognized expert. Because as you may see in the marketplace, it's not always what actual knowledge you have, it's how you position yourself, who knows you, how people perceive you. And these are all things that can be strategically and deliberately put into place. And that is exactly what Dorie has spent the last decade doing herself and teaching to other people. So with that introduction, let's head over to the interview with Dorie Clark. My name's Adam Franklin, and welcome to the Web Marketing That Works podcast, Dorie Clark.
Adam, thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. I really enjoyed seeing your face come up on all those news feeds for your political commentary during the recent US election. And I just wanted to start by asking you, I guess, how did you end up with such a visible public profile that you have today?
Well, thank you. In terms of building the profile that I have today, it's something that I worked on very consciously and concertedly. I started my business as a marketing strategy consultant about 11 years ago now. And before I launched, I really hadn't put a lot of thought into marketing or my brand. I kind of jumped into entrepreneurship, which is probably not the right way to do it. But once I had launched my business, it hit me. I realized, oh my gosh, it seems like everyone is a marketing consultant out there. And people would constantly be asking me questions to try to get me to differentiate my business or, well, what do you do specifically? What kind of clients do you work with? Why should I refer people to you? I had a hard time answering those questions. And so I realized that I really needed to embark upon a campaign, first of all, to understand and share what I was good at. But second of all, even more importantly, to try to get it so that other people could see my true talents and recognize them so that I wouldn't have to be telling them about how great I was. Instead, they would already know it. They already would have heard about me or would have already seen me. I needed to raise my profile so that I could attract business and command the kind of premium fees that I hoped to attain. And so I spent the past decade really studying that question and trying to work to build up my platform to the place it is now, where I've written 2 books. I have another one coming out in the fall from Harvard Business Review. I contribute regularly to the Harvard Business Review. As you mentioned, I do regular political commentary on television. I actually just won a Grammy Award over the weekend, which is pretty exciting for producing a jazz record.
Oh,
so Thank you. Yeah, so I have my hands in a lot of different things, but it was very much a conscious effort and a plan that I executed.
And you're also a stand-up comedian.
It's true. I haven't won any awards for that yet, but I'm working on it.
That's awesome. So, Dory, what specific things did you find move the needle the most when it came to, I guess, in those early days when you were a marketing consultant trying to differentiate yourself? What were those things you did in the early days that moved the needle to take that first couple of steps towards building that profile?
What I realized, Adam, when I studied it, and my book Stand Out really was a compilation of me interviewing more than 50 of the world's top thought leaders, especially in the business realm. People that your listeners may have heard of, like Seth Godin, Dan Pink, Tom Peters, Robert Cialdini, David Allen, a lot of the greats in the business world, and trying to break down and understand in a very tactical sense what the process was by which they came up with their breakthrough ideas and were able to build a following around them. And so what I learned from that process is that fundamentally, if you are going to become a recognized expert, there are three key categories. There are three key boxes that you need to check. And they are content creation, social proof, and your network. And very briefly, I'm happy to talk about them in more depth, but very briefly, what I mean by them, content creation is about sharing your ideas publicly, whether that's blogging or podcasting or giving speeches. But somehow you need to share your ideas because otherwise no one's going to know what your ideas are. They're going to have no idea how good you are. So content creation is mandatory. Social proof is basically a fancy term from psychology. What that's referring to is your credibility. And the reason you need to garner social proof, affiliations that signify to people that you are someone to be believed, that you are someone who knows what they're talking about, is that we live in such a crazy, busy world. People are not going to take the time to evaluate your credentials on their own. They want to have some kind of a shortcut. And so if you are the head of a professional association, or if you blog for high-profile publications, those are the kinds of things that can help people give you a second look and say, okay, I'll take a look and see what she's saying. And then finally, your network is crucial because they not only provide you with insights and ideas and feedback, but they're also your earliest ambassadors. Your network are the people that if you have a good idea, they can help you spread it. Those are the three ingredients that are necessary to become a recognized expert.
Okay, so with the network part, are you referring to like an audience of subscribers and fans, or more so like a peer network? Yeah, of say, other influencers or bigger influencers, that you're trying to sort of rise up to be at their level, or is it a bit of both?
That's a really great question. And in fact, it is a little bit of both. As I describe in my book, Stand Out, fundamentally, there's a three-step process when it comes to building a following around your ideas. The first one is, in fact, that kind of close-in network, your peer group of people, let's call them your mentor board of directors. They're your colleagues that you really like and respect and trust, the people who can speak to you honestly and give you good ideas and good feedback. We all have to have that. It makes us better as entrepreneurs and sharper thinkers. But then from there, once we've got that core, you do need to start expanding. And in fact, it's through the act of content creation, so these things are very synergistic, that you begin to go into the second stage, which is building an audience. And that is people who may not know you personally, but they know you through your ideas. They know you through your material. So building an audience is phase 2. And then finally, phase 3, which is kind of the culmination when it comes to building a following around your ideas, is what I call building a community. And that is that magic place where once you've started to build enough of an audience, they start talking to each other. And so it's not just you communicating with a bunch of people in a vacuum. They start having listservs and meetups and conversations and chat groups in Facebook or what have you. And your ideas begin to spread even beyond you and even when you're not in the room.
Very useful. So one of the challenges, I guess, that people have in their head about putting themselves out there and becoming more visible is that fear of rejection, fear of criticism. How real is that? And have you got any techniques to, I guess, combat that or to put your mind at ease a bit? Because it can be quite scary, that thought.
Yeah, it can in the early days, for sure. And so, in fact, I do have a tip. This is one that I followed, and it's one that I think people can use to really good effect. And that is, In the early days, if you are in fact a little bit nervous about putting yourself out there, one great way to begin to bridge the gap is if you are creating content, you can actually use that platform to highlight someone else's ideas rather than your own. And so, for example, if you were doing this, Adam, and you were just getting started, let's say you started a blog, whether it was your own blog or you do something on Medium or LinkedIn, and you would pick someone in your field or somebody that you knew that you admired and say, hey, could I interview you about your thoughts on business or your thoughts on the industry? So you do the interview, you write it up, you create something that, hopefully makes them look good and shares their ideas in a positive way. And that accomplishes, actually, it kills three birds with one stone. Number one, it's good for networking because, of course, you're getting to spend time talking with this person that you admire. You're kind of doing them a favor by increasing their exposure. So that's good. Number two, you're obviously creating content from it. So your name is getting out there. Your ideas are getting out there. And number three, it's creating social proof because over time, as you begin to do this more and more, you're not going to have to stay forever writing for LinkedIn or your own blog. You can up ladder to more and more prominent publications the more experience you get. And so that begins to be a form of social proof. So if you're nervous about sharing your ideas, instead think about ways that you can shine a spotlight on other people in your industry that you admire.
That's fantastic. And then I guess that gives you confidence as you do that and slowly gives you the courage to start sharing your own ideas.
That's exactly right. It's kind of a form of professional development because, if I interview a dozen people about my industry, pretty soon I'm going to start to form some ideas. I mean, I like what he said. I don't like what she said. And you begin to modify it and figure out where you fit in that spectrum. And it really helps you understand and hone what your own belief and your own perspectives are.
That's neat. And then I guess you're going to be associated with those people that you've interviewed over time as well and gradually get dragged up by their profile too.
Yeah, exactly. It is kind of a rising tide lifts all boats phenomenon.
So what have been I guess you mentioned earlier that you went from a digital marketing consultant trying to differentiate yourself to commanding the premium fees today. What type of correlation was there? Like, did you suddenly, start blogging for Harvard Business Review and then put your fees up, or what was the sort of correlation between profile and income?
Yeah, so one very clear example is that for years, since I started my business in 2006, I gave a reasonable number of talks. I like public speaking, and so it was always part of my toolkit of just finding a way to promote my business. But I was always speaking for free. It was always just, lead generation. Nobody in the world would have paid me to speak, even if, I thought I was pretty good, but they really didn't care. What I came to understand is that when people pay you to speak, it's not about how good you are on stage. It's not about, you're going to entertain our audience. I mean, yes, they want that, of course. But the reason people pay you to speak at a conference or to address a big corporate gathering or something like that is that your name carries weight and makes it more likely that people will buy tickets to that event. That's really what they're after. And so if you can demonstrate essentially through your profile that people are more likely to have heard of you, or at a minimum to have heard of the entities which you're affiliated with. She writes for Harvard Business Review, or, whatever it is, then that makes you more valuable in the eyes of the organizers. And so it was almost like a switch flipped for me. When I published my first book, Reinventing You, that was when, after years of just sort of toiling in obscurity and speaking for free, that was when I began to command, 4-figure and 5-figure sums for giving talks.
Okay. And what would you say some of the mistakes that people make on this sort of journey to building their profile and becoming a recognized expert?
Well, one thing that I've seen a lot, Adam, is that many times entrepreneurs are very good in one of the elements of building your brand as a recognized expert. So either content creation or social proof or networking. But because they like it, they like that one thing and they're good at it, they assume that if they keep doubling down on it and just doing more of that thing, that is going to be determinative for them, that is going to be the way that they can muscle themselves to success. And the truth is, everyone has natural tendencies. Everyone is probably stronger in one area than in others. But becoming a recognized expert is very much a situation where you're only as strong as your weakest link. You can't just do content creation and assume that everything else will take care of itself. You also have to think about social proof and your network, because those are the things that support your content creation and make it travel farther and faster, that make people more likely to want to read it. And so I think a mistake that people make is they go all in on one thing and they don't look at rounding out their weaknesses. But if they did that, they would actually be far more successful in total.
Okay. Now, Dorie, you've got some tools and resources for our listeners to help them on their journey to becoming an expert. Can you maybe talk to us a little bit about those?
Absolutely, Adam. So when I was researching my book, Stand Out, I developed a self-assessment workbook that I have heard from readers has been enormously helpful to them. It is a 42-page free workbook that actually has 139 questions in it that literally walks you step by step through how to develop the innovative ideas that you'll become known for, and then how to build a following around those ideas. And so, for any entrepreneur, we know that if we are perceived as a recognized expert, it makes an enormous difference in our business. It becomes easier for clients to know about us and discover us. People start seeking us out and wanting to do business with us because our reputation precedes us. And so if anyone is interested in getting that free resource, that free 42-page self-assessment workbook, they can just go to DorieClark.com/Adam. That's DorieClark.com/Adam, and they can download it for free.
Okay, thank you for that, Dorie. Now, Dorie, have you got any final words of wisdom or anything you'd like to get off your chest before we call it a day?
Thank you, Adam. Well, I think overall that when it comes to building a reputation as a recognized expert, I think that what I've seen, again and again, because I do coaching for entrepreneurs and consultants and other people who are working to build their reputation in this area, is that people sometimes get frustrated too early, because this is very much like going to the gym. And yet when it comes to thought leadership, people say, oh, well, I tried blogging and it didn't work. And, they did like 4 blogs and then they stopped. And, you're not going to get muscles that way. And you're also not going to become a recognized expert that way. This is not something that is extraordinarily hard or painful or impossible for people to do. Not at all. Just like people can get fit, they can become recognized experts in their niche or in their field. But it takes commitment, and it takes just a little bit of strategic focus to know where to apply your efforts and to keep them up. But if you can do those things, it becomes enormously powerful. And that's why I'm really excited to share this message and also the self-assessment workbook with folks, because I would like more good ideas to get out there in the world. And it pains me when talented professionals and entrepreneurs aren't really getting their true talents recognized by people, just because we live in such a noisy, crowded world. I think the more ideas out there, the better. And so hopefully people can step up and realize that it really is possible.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, that's a wonderful note to finish on. Dorie, thanks so much for sharing your ideas on the show and for sharing the resources as well. I know our readers and listeners will be very appreciative of that. So thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Adam.
And that's a wrap for my chat with Dorie Clark. I recommend you head over to DorieClark.com/Adam so that you can actually download her free 42-page Stand Out self-assessment workbook. It really is a very cool document and will help you work out where you're at and work out what else you need to do to become a recognized expert. Of course, I'll have a link to that in the show notes, but my takeaway points from that interview were the 3 major stepping stones to building that profile and to becoming a recognized expert. The first of which was content creation, sharing your ideas, whether that's podcasts or blogs or speeches. Very, very important first step. Then getting that social proof and that credibility. So sharing, I guess, maybe the number of audiences you've spoken to, the number of subscribers that you have, the number of people that have been through your program or that have bought your book or that have endorsed you. So that is all social proof and credibility. And then the third part is building your network of ambassadors, people who know who you are, people who are happy to spread the word for you and vouch for you. That is how you get a lot more visibility and profile in the marketplace. So really, really cool show. As I said, head over to DorieClark.com/Adam. Get your hands on the self-assessment workbook there. If you've got questions for me, hit me up on email, adam.franklin@bluewiremedia.com.au. The plan is for these podcasts to be very actionable, so I hope you have found that the case today. If you've liked the show, would love it if you left us an honest review on iTunes, and we'll give a shout out to the 5-star reviewers. So with that, actually don't forget to download the bonus 33 marketing templates that Toby and I released with our book. They're available at bluewiremedia.com.au/book. All right, folks, take care, and I'll see you on the next show. Bye.